Hello, this is Osa. Today I want to talk about identity shifting. This is a concept that I've practiced for some time now, and I'm continuously practicing. Identity shifting is role playing. To me, this is how I'm easily able to explain it to myself, is pulling my future self into the present. As simple as that. Many years ago, we were struggling financially, and right at the same time, we were expecting our first son. But before that, I used to always just call our bills checks. And I would tell my partner at the time, go check the mail if we have some checks. When she got out of the hospital, because she spent about a month or over a month in the hospital just on bed rest, before our son came, right around that time, I was working a job that wasn't really cutting it. It wasn't paying the bill. It was paying the bills, but it was just enough to pay the bills, right? But during this time, while she was at the hospital, I didn't work enough hours to cover the bills for that month. When she got out of the hospital, the bills were about 100,000 plus, right? And still had bills, like rent and insurance and the rest of the things to pay that month. Not even just that, I didn't have enough money to cover the groceries. In fact, the exact check I received was about 275, almost $300. On our way back home, I stopped at the mail and I checked the mail. And when I opened the mail, there was a check in the mail. The check was from some company, some insurance, back pay, whatever it is. I couldn't really understand. I never really understood or couldn't even understand where that check was from, right? And not even just that. Um, the apartment said we didn't owe the full rent that month. In fact, the exact money they said we owed was the exact money that I had from my job, the check I got from my job. The check that came in the mail was just enough for us to do groceries, pay the bills, the rest bill and everything. And that brings me to the conversation or the thought of this week, which is fake life, new life, right? You can assume a different life by jumping into the identity of the one you want to become in the future. But the trick is doing it now and every day. You want to be rich? Cultivate habits that people that have, or I'm sorry, I read that again. You want to be rich? Cultivate habits that people have. Going and surrounding yourself with, one more time. You want to be rich? Cultivate habits that rich people have. Going around and surrounding yourself with that type of frequency. You want to become intellectual? Then do that by surrounding yourself by intellectual people, reading more books, listening to more lectures by intellectual people. For people just seeing my video for the first time, this is Osa. I'm a man trying to figure it out, just like you. And that's how I introduce myself. Because again, introductions are usually the most important things that you want somebody to know about you. And I've been working on mine. Please let me know in the comments how it sounds. And you should work on yours too. I believe that identity shifting is it's role playing. This is how we are easily able to assume the life that we want for ourselves. It's just by you being able to wear that future self now. You necessarily don't have to wait till you become that. You can become that today. And goes by with the concept of you have to become first before you have, right? And by identity shifting, you're basically wearing the emotions because everything is frequency, right? You're basically wearing the emotions of how you would feel in the future when you get that particular thing that you're requesting or that particular life that you want. For example, you want to be rich, you go around rich people, you do what rich people do. Necessarily, you don't have to wear uh, a $500,000 shoe or shirt or whatever it is. But what you can do is you can go and test those things out. Like you can go drive, you can go test drive your future car and feel the energy of driving the car and feeling how it feels right at this moment. That when you start to imagine, which is our greatest superpower, when you imagine, it's easy for you to imagine that feeling because again, you've been in that car, you felt that energy before, right? So it's very easy for you to assume that life by wearing that future self now and just feeling the frequencies, the energy, the emotions that you would feel when you're in that future self. You just all you're doing really is just pulling the future self to you right at this moment. And this is what I do and it works. It works for me most of the time. Is I'm easily able to pull that future self to myself by just feeling that energy in my body. And when I feel that energy, I just walk around feeling that energy every single day, right? I used to, most of my friends know I don't say things that I don't want it to happen. So with my words, I choose my words very carefully, how I say certain things and how I even feel about certain things, right? There was some time where I was looking, I was scrolling through Instagram, and there was this particular figure that I saw, and right at that moment, there was a feeling. I just said to myself, I said, it's not a wishful feeling of being that person, but it was a wishful feeling of being friends with that person or even just being around that type of person. I actually fell asleep thinking that thought or wearing that particular emotions. And fast forward a couple of months later, I moved to LA, and I was fortunate to be among some friends that knew that particular figure that I had that imagination about. And I was right in that moment, and all of a sudden, I turned around, I looked up, and I said, this is this person. And in my mind, right at that moment, that day that I had that imagination and fell asleep thinking about that came to my mind. And that was one of the first times that something like that, or maybe the second time something like that has happened to me. And I immediately knew exactly how strong the frequencies and emotions that we feel are, right? So that's basically identity shifting. That's a simple way for me, and this is how I explain it to myself. It's a simple way to shift. For me, I do this all the time where if I'm recording a new album or recording a new song, if I'm trying to record a certain type of music, I start to wear that particular emotions. I shift to the person that already have those types of songs or recorded those types of songs, and I'm easily able to record those types of songs because, right, I've wore the emotions of those songs or that feeling. I would say, um, if there's anybody that is able to talk more, explain, just for everybody else to to know how to identity shift, because I believe it's one of the greatest superpowers that we have outside of your imagination, what I mean, which leads to your creativity. I think being able to shift is another superpowers that we have as humans. So if you're able to explain more in details, please put in the comments so that everybody else can learn from it. But again, this is Osa, and I would see you in the next video. Next video, whatever. Bye.